Folks, I'm outside the Hydro for Iron Maiden, Run for Your Lives. Some people have described this as the best gig they've ever been to. Keep watching and I'll give you my full review on Relive the Music. Hi folks, thanks for joining me on another Relive the Music video. So I'm super excited to be doing this one because it's all about my favourite band, Iron Maiden. So this is my gig review of their show at the OVO Hydro in Glasgow on Monday the 30th of June. And this was the final show of the UK leg of the Run for Your Lives tour. So in my review, I'll talk about the arena and the merchandise that you could have bought. I'll talk briefly about the support band who were the Raven Age. I'll talk about the atmosphere in the crowd, the band's performance, and then I'll run through the set list and give you my final thoughts on the gig. So my name's Ricky, and welcome to my channel, Relive the Music. Okay, so this gig took place at the OVO Hydro in Glasgow, which has got a 14,000 capacity. Now, obviously, there was some chat beforehand about they could have played a bigger venue, like they did in London, where they played to 75,000 people. So yeah, I think the demand would have been there, and they probably could have. However, from a selfish point of view, I was glad that it was in Glasgow. So I actually think the sound in the Hydro is really good, and I think if you'd taken that to a Murrayfield or a Hampden, it just would have been terrible, because I think you'll lose a lot of the quality of the sound just through like the air and the wind. So I was really pleased that it was, you know, kept here, albeit it probably means that some people did miss out, but I mean, that's just the way things are. So the ticket for this gig cost me £101. So it might have been cheaper perhaps if you're in the standing section. So I was lucky enough to have Club Hydro seats. I've got a friend who has seats there and he doesn't like rock music, so I get to use them for that. So that was good because I managed to go right to the front. There was no queue for the Club Hydro, whereas there was an absolutely massive queue of people waiting outside. That's the biggest that I've seen it. And even the merch van outside was like a really big queue for that as well. So I'd got there just about 7:15 and I was able to just walk straight up through the Club Hydro, like no queue to get in. After a quick security search, I headed to the merch. So there was loads of merch. I'd had a look at the Iron Maiden site beforehand to see what t-shirts that you could have bought. So they were all kind of priced at the £45 range. And I'd seen comments, I think the ones in London, they were pricing them at £50, but all the ones that I saw here were £45. And I was torn between what to buy. There was so many decent ones on offer. Like, I really fancied the Mariner and Power Slave one, but I did buy two, so I paid £90. It was £45 each. I got the green one because it's a bit different with the Aces High, with the Eddie on the front, and then it had the tour venues on the back. And then I got the sort of classic old Made in England with Eddie on the bike, and on the back it had like the UK dates on it. Okay, so the support for the Glasgow leg of this tour was by the Raven Age. So this is the band featuring George Harris, the son of Iron Maiden bassist Steve. So I'd never seen them before. They came on stage at 7:30 and they played 8 songs and they were on until about 8:20, and I thought they were good. It's always difficult for me to like a band that I've not heard before, but yeah, I thought they had some good songs in there. The only drawback for me was, I think, the lead singer, Matt. He swore quite a lot in between the songs. I know it's a rock show, but bear in mind there was a lot of people that would have been here with kids for their first time to see Iron Maiden, and we were treated to quite a lot of F-bombs in between songs, saying, "How the F are you, Glasgow?" and make some effing noise, and I think that could have been toned down a bit. But aside from that, it was a decent opening band. Okay, so the sound in the Hydro was excellent, although it was loud at times. However, that didn't affect me because I had my earplugs in. So I've been using these ones now for over 2 years. I find them excellent and just kind of reducing the noise a wee bit to a bearable level, and it prevents me waking up with that ringing in my ears the next day. So I'll put a link in the description below. These only retail about £14 and I highly recommend them. Okay, so now to the main event itself. So I took a wee clip of the crowd just before UFO Dr. Doctor started playing, and you can see that basically there's not an empty seat to be found in the place, and the standing area was absolutely packed. So they played the usual UFO Dr. Doctor, and that was to loud ovations from the crowd and a lot of singing along. And then when that faded out, this is when the real thing started. So the show starts with this epic sort of 2-minute CGI animation film where it's as if you're walking down like an old East End street, and it's full of tons of Iron Maiden Easter egg references. So I've had to watch it back a couple of times and slow it down just to sort of catch them all. So there was the likes of the Ruskin Arms, and then the Blind Beggar, and then we saw Upton Park on the wall, and then it panned away to, I think it was probably meant to be like Steve Harris's house, and there's the West Ham flag up in the window and the guitars outside. Then we've got the likes of the Cart and Horses pub, and there's an underground, there's an Eddie outside as well, and we see Acacia Avenue. Okay, so then it's as if we're walking through a tunnel, and it takes you through and the lights are flickering and you can hear the water dripping, and it goes dark and it goes into Murders in the Rue Morgue, and the backdrop changes to sort of Paris, the Eiffel Tower in the background. And then we get treated to Wrathchild straight after that, and then straight into Killers after that. So 3 of the earlier tracks. And this is the first time during Killers that we'd get to see Eddie on stage. So it's a sort of 9-foot Eddie that comes out, and he's fooling around with the band members on stage, pretending as if he's going to kill them and they're fighting back and stuff. So it's always a good highlight, I think, to see that. And if you've never seen an Iron Maiden show before, I always think it's really special the first time that you see Eddie appearing on stage, because he is synonymous with Iron Maiden. I think that's a huge thing that everybody likes about Iron Maiden. It's the fact that, you know, they've got this Eddie that can change into various forms, and that's what everybody likes about the t-shirts. I think just the graphics that Derek Riggs created, and so yeah, that's a real highlight, I think. Okay, so after Killers, Bruce talks to the Glasgow crowd for the first time, and then he leads into the song Phantom of the Opera. So that is one of my favourite Iron Maiden tracks. I think there's just so many good parts to that song. You know, you could chop it up into different wee bits, just all the different guitar solos in it, and the changes of pace and keys in it. And yeah, that was great just to hear that on this tour. So that was a highlight for me. Okay, 5th song was Number of the Beast, and this got a huge cheer from the Glasgow crowd just as it started with the "Woe to you, earth and sea, for the devil sends the beast with wrath." Everybody was singing along to that, and we had the usual kind of background CGI for this, so you had the likes of Nosferatu and various different vampire and werewolf flicks, all sort of black and white. And so yeah, some really good visuals in the background for this, and this was a real good hit with the Glasgow crowd. Okay, so the 6th song was the Clairvoyant, and that was good to hear. I don't think I'd heard that since the 2013 Made in England tour. So another change of background, obviously, with Eddie looking into the crystal ball with 2 candles at either side, so that looked really smart. And then we went into the 7th song, which was Power Slave, and this was another spectacular background change. So you had like the pyramids in the background, and you also had Bruce on stage like wearing a sort of ancient Egyptian mask, so that looked really good. And yeah, it went down well, just the way that Power Slave thunders along with the opening beat, you know, the so yeah, that was really a couple of good strong songs back to back. Then after that, straight into another one off of the Power Slave album, so we were treated to 2 Minutes to Midnight, and another really great visual. So we had a big Eddie in the middle, sitting down with a gun, with the flags in the background. And again, that got another big round of applause just when the guitar started for the start of that song. So that went down well. Okay, so now to the 9th song, which was Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And this was probably the song that a lot of people are looking forward to hearing most on this tour. So personally, I'd never seen this played live by Iron Maiden before, and I thought it was amazing. So coming in at just over 14 minutes long, this had the most spectacular graphics in the background for me. The animation from start to finish just kept changing. So you had like ships colliding, and then you saw the crew, and you saw ghouls and ghosts, and you saw the skeleton crew turn into dust and bones. And yeah, just visually it looked great. And in terms of the music, the band pulled it off excellently. So the start of the song obviously thunders along, and then we get the poetic bit in the middle, and then they pick up the pace towards the end, and I thought it was brilliant, and it definitely did it justice in my opinion. Okay, so 10th up was Run to the Hills, and this was another one which went down amazingly well with the Glasgow audience. So there's so many folk belting out the chorus Run to the Hills as loud as they could, and another excellent visual background with the image which you see from the single with the Eddie fighting on the hills. The 11th song they played was Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, and I know I said that a lot of folk would have been looking forward to Mariner. There was probably as many people that were looking forward to hearing this one as well. Now personally, I've heard this played live twice, so it wasn't so much of a must see or must hear for me, but again, they pulled this off really well. It's sort of a bit like Mariner in that you've got a strong opening and then a sort of slow bit in the middle, and then it picks it up again towards the end with all the guitar solos. Visually stunning as well. I do love some of the artwork on the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son album. So you had the Eddie in the middle throughout with like the waters and the lakes, and then the different eddies at the side and the sort of icebergs and things, and yeah, it looked visually stunning. So keeping up the pace, the 12th song was The Trooper, and this marked Bruce coming out with his usual flag waving antics. So first out with a Union Jack, and then he went and he got a saltire and was waving that about. And then obviously we got Eddie out on stage for the second time as well, so that was always good to see, and it went down really well with the crowd as well, and they played it superbly, I think. So the 13th song was Hallowed Be Thy Name, and this was expertly done on set. So it started off really dark, and then the lights were just centred up on Bruce, and he was as if he was in a jail, like through bars, and you saw him in the bars, obviously to do with the song Awaiting Execution, Waiting at the Gallows. And he sang like in these bars for like most of the song, and then about 2/3 of the way through, it was as if he was released from it, and he was getting chased by like a spirit. I had to look twice, and I actually thought it was him, and then I looked again and realised it was a CGI animation, but it was done so well, it did look really convincing. And we had the usual Bruce playing to the crowds, giving it the old, with the hands like as if to lift the voices and scream for me Glasgow, giving it the, building it up. So yeah, that went down really well. So the 14th song closing out the first part of the show was Iron Maiden, as it always is. They always close on that one. So it went down well with the audience. And we were actually treated to the third time of seeing Eddie on stage, but not by way of like a 9-foot person in a costume. This time it was a CGI animation, and I thought it looked really good. I'd seen reviews of people saying it didn't look that good when you saw it looking back on a phone, but I'll let you decide for yourselves. I thought it was good. I mean, obviously if you were a lot closer, if you'd been standing at the front, then it probably looked like scarier or more realistic, but I thought it was really well done and a good way to close out that first part of the show. So for the encore, they started with the intro of Churchill's speech, and then it went into Ace's High, obviously. So visually, another treat for the eye, with Eddie in a fighter jet turning round and shooting other planes, and you kept seeing him coming up to stage with this big menacing grin. And I thought the song was performed well by Bruce. Everybody enjoyed singing along to the chorus as well on it, and it was really good to hear. So the second last song was Fear of the Dark, and this saw Bruce in another change of outfit. He was basically dressed like a funeral director waving a green lantern. And this song went down well with the crowd. I think everybody appreciates the singing along parts to Fear of the Dark, that giving it the old whoa, 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 whoa. So everybody enjoyed singing along to that one. Okay, so the 17th and final song of the night was Wasted Years, and probably apt it's talking about a time-related event in it, given that this was 50 years of Iron Maiden. So the backdrop for this one was as if it was like a time machine, and although that was pretty cool, I think they could have done more personally with the background graphics in it. So a bit like the Wasted Years video, I'd have liked to have seen all the flashback eddies appear quickly in succession. I think that would have made it really cool, but all in all I can't really fault it. Okay, so thoughts on the band's performance. I thought that Dave Murray on guitars especially was really good. When it zoomed in to him doing a lot of the solos, I thought he was excellent, sounded brilliant. Same for Yannick and Adrian, and obviously Steve does his thing. As for the drummer, obviously a lot had been made about Simon Dawson coming in to replace Nico. And to me, I mean, I'm not that well trained on the ear, but I thought it was fine. I thought the drums sounded okay. I didn't notice any difference. I'm not gifted enough to know the difference between Nico and Simon. Basically, if you changed Bruce out for a different singer, then I would have been able to tell the difference. But yeah, for me, it was fine. And I actually thought there was somewhat of a renewed energy about this show as opposed to the one 2 years ago. So I don't know if that was sort of helped somewhat by the fact that Bruce didn't actually talk to the crowd a lot in this one like he did in the Future Past tour. I think because they had 17 songs to get in, and obviously two such big ones as Mariner and Seventh Son, they didn't really have a lot of time to talk, and that wasn't a bad thing, so we weren't treated to a lot of his rubbish chat in between. Okay, so now to the set list, and this is always going to divide fans' opinion. So the fact that Iron Maiden have so many songs to choose from their back catalogue, you're never going to be able to please everybody. So personally, I've obviously heard the likes of Wrathchild, Run to the Hills, Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden loads of times before. So I could have done without hearing them, but this was obviously meant to be a greatest hits, I think, for the fans, for the ages. I know some folk might be shaking their head like, what? But having seen them 8 times before, I've heard these songs to death. I would have rather had some other ones in there that personally I haven't heard. So there's no right or wrong to this. This is just choice. So I would have loved to have heard something like Sea of Madness, which they didn't do on the Future Past tour. I think that's a great song. I would have removed Wrathchild and Killers, and I would have had in Purgatory and Drifter. I think they're really good songs. And I would have had something in there from No Prayer for the Dying. The likes of Holy Smoke for me would have fitted well. Or I've heard Tail Gunner before, so that, or maybe Hooks and You, or even Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter Again, something like that. So you could have taken out Seventh Son, which is like 12.5 minutes long. I've heard that twice before, so I would rather have had maybe Only the Good Die Young in there, and definitely Infinite Dreams. I would have loved to have heard that. I think that's a great song, and I think that would have gone down really well. As I say, there's no right or wrong choices to this. It's all about personal opinions. So let me know in the comments what songs you would have liked to have heard and what would you have sacrificed for them. So unfortunately I don't have any accompanying video footage which I can show you of this gig. I did have it up on the channel for about 12 hours and it had 8,000 views and 70 positive comments. However, I got a copyright strike and Iron Maiden requested that I take it down, which is a bit of a shame. So that's obviously Rod's way of getting his own back in me for saying that I didn't have a sore arm for filming the gigs, but I got a wee slap in the wrist instead. Okay, so my final thoughts on this. Was this the best Iron Maiden gig ever? And indeed, was this the best gig ever that you've been to? Well, for me, the answer is simple. No, it's not, because that is always going to be 1993 for me. I won a competition and I got to meet Iron Maiden backstage, and I also got to come on during Heaven Can Wait with other competition winners. So nothing is ever going to rival that for me. Had that not happened, then yes, it probably does have claim to be the best show. So it's maybe the second best show that I've been to, if that pleases some of you. Okay, so were you at this show, or did you see them at another venue as part of this tour? Let me know in the comments below. What were the standout songs for you, and what didn't they play that you would have liked to have heard? Also, if you have enjoyed this video, it would be great if you could give it a wee thumbs up and maybe think about subscribing to my channel. If you're a fan of music, and rock music in particular, and you're from Scotland and maybe Glasgow, then I do some interesting reliving the music videos where I look back all my gigs that I went to all the way back to 1993, and you might find it of interest. Till the next time, have a great day and up the irons.